Well, first of all, I want to wish you happy birthday. I think
Oh,
Saturday is
thank
your
you.
birthday.
That's coming up. It's coming up soon here. I always forget to count now. My birthdays, I try
Yeah.
and forget them.
Oh
But
yeah.
thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's better not counting them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm so glad to be able to interview you. So
Me
happy.
too.
So I to start the interview. First of all, congratulations for your new album. I think it's great.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and I was wondering, with all your extensive career, like writing for other people with Toto and with many projects you've been
Mhm.
involved, why did you decide right now to do a solo album?
Well, there was a couple of factors. One was that during the COVID pandemic, I had a chunk of time to work on something, its focus on it, where Toto wasn't going on the road. And, I kind of stopped going on the road at that time. Uh, and so there had been some pieces and stuff, and I'd been thinking about putting a couple of songs together, but the urgent request and prodding from my colleagues, Joseph Williams and Steve Lukather, kept pushing me to do a solo album, because each of those guys had done like 10 solo albums, and I haven't done one, so they thought it was a good time that I did one. So I thought I agreed with them and wanted to get some show people another side of me that they hadn't seen, or one that they were familiar with, that they were comfortable with, So that's why it's taken so long.
Well, I think that's great. I also interviewed Steve and Joseph when they released their albums, which I
Right.
like them both. Yeah. And when you listen to Steve's albums and Joe's and yours, I think that when you can relate, when you hear like a Toto song, you can say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this part is more like
Yeah.
look at her. This is more Page. This is more
Yeah.
Jordi." I think it's cool.
We actually talked about that. Like, hey, wouldn't it be a trip if people played all three solo albums on shuffle? And they could almost have a Toto album there. Not quite, but it would give you a little bit of taste. Just like I think when the Beatles do solo records, you can kind of hear what the Beatles would do when you hear McCartney with Wings, or you hear George Harrison with John Lennon and Ringo playing on his stuff. I think when they keep their comrades and their mates close to them, I think it helps preserve that sound that they are so well known for.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I noticed is that I didn't know what to expect when I was gonna hear your album for the first time. But usually when people that play in a band so famous as Toto, they release like their own solo album.
Right.
Sometimes there's a lot of the instrument in that album. Like if you're a guitarist, there's a lot of solos and solo.
You're right.
Guitar. But in your album, I think it's just like a whole bunch of great songs and no ego. Like just songs.
Well, that was the idea, is not to have a lot of indulgent, long playing stuff. Although there's some great playing by Steve Lukather on the end of Spirit of the Moonrise, where we just let him go. And he's an incredible guitarist. And Don Felder played on Queen Charade. And so there's a couple of solos in there. Mike Lang does the incredible piano solo on Lucy, my mentor hero, Mike Lang. And again, it's supposed to be just a collection of songs from me, and that's what I am. That's basically a songwriter.
And when now that you talk with about all of these musicians, you have been recording with probably the best musicians in the world for decades.
Yes.
When it comes time to release your own album, how do you manage to say, okay, I want this and this and this and these musicians in my record? Because you might know hundreds of great musicians.
Yeah. As far as picking musicians to play on the record, I know all these. I know everybody that's on my record intimately. I know them for years and years. I've played with all of them before, just about all of them before, and so I know it's familiar terrain for me to have these guys in. Especially what I would do is I'd just take them one at a time and bring them in to overdub on my piece, my song. And like I said, I've known Nathan East for over 30 years, and he's my favorite bass player. And so I called him. I called Greg Bissonette, who played with Toto, was out on the road with Toto. I think they were out in Sweden or some one time. Simon Phillips was sick, so Greg's been with us on a little bit, and he's a fabulous player. And we had Don Felder play on Queen's Charade, and Davy Johnston played on the Elton John on All the Tears Must Shine, that cut with Michael Sherwood singing. So, and I had Michael McDonald sing on Spirit of the Moonrise. He's a good friend, and I worked on his album, so he kind of returned the favor. You know, all these guys are kind of returning favors I have, because I have a studio, so it's like they send me tracks and I overdub on them, and I send them tracks. You know, so it's a fun process. It's very much fun, but it's very focused, very serious when we're working on it, especially for friends. Everybody gives their best performances. You know.
That's great. So I assume that all the mixing and production was in your studio. You were the producer.
Yeah, most of it. The mixing wasn't. The mixing was done at Bob Clearmountain's studio, and I can't say enough about Bob Clearmountain. How much he takes a record and makes it come to life, and he's just amazing. He's a genius, and the rest of the recording was done pretty much in my studio. As far as all of it, I had to send out a couple of tracks to other studios. When Steve Jordan, who played on Queen's Charade, Steve Jordan's now the drummer in the Rolling Stones, but this was a week before he joined the Stones. I sent him the track, and he played on it in New York. And Greg Bissonette was in another studio playing on his stuff. So except for a couple of things, most of it was done in my studio.
And for songs like Queen Charade, that is like feels like not so close to Toto, more like, for me it's more like classic rock, you know, and with harmonic and stuff. Wouldn't you prefer to record the whole band together, make it more organic? Or
I would, you know, if I had time to play with that team of guys a lot. If I'd been playing with them, like the Rolling Stones, they play together every day, and that's how you get that band sound, you know. And yeah, it would have been a luxury. I thought about that, you know, being able to play with everybody in the room, but that takes time, and you might get a take or you might not get a take, you know. And it's just hard getting all those guys in one room, because usually everybody's on the road. Nathan East is out with Clapton. Steve Jordan is out with the Rolling Stones. So I had to get the players that I really wanted on there. And hopefully it sounds like everybody's playing together in the same room, you know, because it's very, very live, because I've got great musicians and they know how to play live to other musicians. So I feel a special affinity for that track, because it shows a little more reckless side of me than most records that you associate with me. And I love it. I love it a lot.
Yeah, I think that's cool. The interaction of the instrument, it feels like very organic, very live. I also like that you put like the Lucy, the last song, like jazzy or something, which is great. And it's a great song. I really like it.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, my dad was a jazz pianist, so I grew up with jazz piano all around. And he worked with a great singer. There used to be a jazz singer called Mel Torme, who was a very famous singer in the 50s and 60s. And my dad worked with him a lot. So I brought his son in, James Torme, to sing some scatting and do some oohs and ahs on it. It's just, I want to show another side of me. So I brought Greg Bissonette, Lenny Castro in, Mike Valerio. I love the fact that it has stand-up bass on it. I love the fact that it's loose and it's changing constantly. And I'm very proud of that track.
Yeah, I think it's great. I want to ask you something about composing, because you have composed so many things, but how different and how do you approach when you compose, when you do it by yourself and when you do it with other like band members like Toto, or when you do it like for unknown artists? Because composing with 2-3 different persons might be so different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it goes different ways. Sometimes we'll sit in a room, three people, just me and Joseph and Steve Lukather. We'll sit in a room and someone will have an idea for a riff and someone else will pick up on the riff and just like playing tag with each other here, you know. First someone gets it and then transfers it to the other person and we all start writing little things. Or someone will come in, maybe I'll get a drum groove happening at my studio and put a keyboard part to it and I'll bring that to the session. So we have a starting spot, we have a groove, and we have a little 4-bar sections playing. Sometimes that's how it is, and other times someone will bring out a full song. Steve Lukather will do that many times. He'll work with a lyricist and bring in the song, and I try and I'm just my stuff's piecemeal. I used to get the song very quickly, the melody and the words to the chorus, but it takes me a very long time to write the verse words to get them the way that I like, you know, because it's very personal and it's my attempt at poetry, you know.
Yeah, that was gonna be my other question at composing. That you usually start always with the music, or there's sometimes that you have some words in mind, and from that you just.
It usually starts with the music, but I start singing a lot of times right when I start playing. As soon as I lay my hands down and I play for about 15 seconds, I usually start singing to whatever I'm playing at, because I can form melodies very quickly to my style of playing, you know. And sometimes it's a drum beat that'll inspire me to start singing song with it, with no music in it, just the drums themselves. Or I'll lay down a little simple bass line with the drums. There's so many ways. Technology's provided us with all the tools and all the toys to make this great train set that keyboard players have, and with Pro Tools and everything. It's really an exciting time to be living in, to be able to make your own records and polish them, just like professionals used to do back in the 60s and 70s, before you had all the fine tuning instruments and drum machines and all that stuff, when people used to have to play and stuff. So I like the mixture of both.
And I was thinking, like, for a student or some young musician that start working on composing, do you have any trick when they tell you, oh, you have to do a song for next Friday and you have to do it now? How do you start? Any tricks on, oh, I have to start at some point?
Well, sometimes that's the best motivation at all, is a deadline. I used to have to do that when I was in college. My dad was scoring a TV series, episodic TV series called Ironsides. It's real old, but the producer wanted a song every single episode, every week. So every 10 days, I had to come up with a different song that met the requirements of the script. And so it was like $500 a song, and they buy the song, and you have to do it every 10 days for 20 episodes, have to come up with songs. So again, I think either paying the rent or having a deadline is some of the best motivation you can have for finishing a song.
Yeah, that's for sure. And do you prefer, well, I guess you like both, but do you prefer composing or touring, playing?
I love nothing's better than the 2 hours on stage you can spend when you're touring. That's the most fun you can possibly have, is to be in a rock and roll band and be on stage those 2 hours. The rest of the part gets a little bit boring sometimes, but the fact that you're meeting different people all the time, and fans always have something different to say, and you share a lot of memories and a lot of stories with people that have lived listening to our music. You know, as they say, it's been the soundtrack to their lives. Well, it actually has been for a lot of people, and so we gain a lot of info and just a lot of content from our fans, and they share amazing stories with us. And some people even name their children after some of our songs, like Rosanna and stuff, you know. So
yeah, that reminds me another two questions. One, One is I was always thinking like you say, when you're touring, you have a lot of time with the members of the band that is not playing and
Yeah,
having fun.
yeah.
You're on the bus and the plane, wherever. When you guys get back from tour, you still hang out together sometimes to go for a dinner, for drinks, or it's like we're too sick of seeing each other.
No, we do. We do. We get together and we FaceTime each other a lot. But it's just like being in a submarine. The David Lee Roth used to call it the bus disco sub. You know, it's after being on the road for two months, everybody cooped up in a bus. Everybody likes to spread out and not see each other for a while. But eventually, after a couple of weeks, we'll start FaceTiming each other and saying, "Hey, do you want to get together for lunch? Let's get together after a while." So yes, we still are friends to this day, and I think it's one of the bonds that Toto has, that we're still best friends and we're still making music together after 40 years.
Yeah, nice. The other question I was thinking is that I always thought, how does it feel? There's like many bands that sell million records or used to sell and fill up stadiums, but I think Toto is probably in the whole world the band that most professional musicians love. You go to Toto concerts, when I have seen here in Madrid, or
Right.
because I'm a professional musician too, you find all the professional guitarists, keyboards, drummers from
Yeah,
Madrid.
yeah.
In Toto.
Oh
How
yeah.
does it
We
feel?
attract. We seem to attract professional musicians and non-professional musicians, and that's great. We love that. That musicians can want to see come and see other great musicians play. You know, I would want to come and see Toto just to hear their professionalism and to hear the sound clarity and to hear some of the songs. You know.
And another thing, do you ever get bored of some songs that you have to play night after night?
Not really, because the fans make it different every night. You know, when you hear applause for your song that you thought was maybe starting to get boring to people, well, every night you have a new audience and you have that new energy, and it's like you end up communing with your audience there. And so one of the challenges is to bring something fresh to the song every time you play it, and hopefully we leave enough room for improvisation so that you can do that within each song slightly, approach it a little differently, you know. But I still love playing the intro to Hold the Line and Africa and all stuff like that, you know. Like again, the crowd, the communing with the crowd is a very magical process.
Yeah, I think it's very cool when you do all those medleys. That I think it's great because get the chance to first of all listen to a medley that you don't know where it's going.
Oh yeah,
and you don't
yeah.
hear the songs the same as in the album. So
yeah, right. That's good. I like when everybody gets creative with the arrangements.
And going back to your album, after this first album, I would like to know if you are planning to do some live performances playing your songs.
I don't have any plans at the moment, but it's very possible that maybe in the next couple of years, maybe I'll have get the confidence enough to go out and perform with the band if they have room for me in the show, you know, because those guys have both solo albums as well. But hopefully I'll get to maybe perform one or two songs with the band live. That would be a dream come true.
So you're planning to come back on stage with Toto soon, or?
That's going to be a surprise. Everybody will have to come to the show to see. I may show up in the most unique places, but I have one or two places I'm going to be showing up here in the near future.
Oh, that's great to hear. And also, are you planning to release more solo albums?
We're just talking about that to my assistant, Pat. I'm going to start working on a little bit more, digging out a little more material and start putting together some more things. You know, because I always like staying busy and staying creative is a great way to spend the time.
Mm-hmm. And apart from your Toto work, are you working for other artists and doing some sessions yet, or?
I haven't been doing any outside things at the moment here, except for going over old Toto rehearsal tapes and listening to a lot of content that Toto has in the bag. We have thousands of tapes in storage, and we like to listen to those and figure out how to present it to our fans out there who like to see some more spontaneous content from the band, and so it's just we're always trying to bring out something new, and I can't really say for sure what's going to happen in the future as far as releasing any material.
Also, I would like to know, after working with such great artists that you work, is there any special artist or musician that you would love to work with?
I've worked with just about everybody. I'd love to work with Mick Jagger sometime. I played on Keith Richards' last solo album. I think it's maybe 3 years old. And I got to play on a cut. Steve Jordan brought me in, and that was on my bucket list. That was a real pinch me moment right there, just to have him shake his hand and have him ask me to record something on his album, and then he stayed and played me 4 or 5 of his songs. And it was a real treat, and that's one of my favorite songwriters, Keith is. And also Elton John. Anytime I work with Elton John, twice, and both times were just, it was like I was in a fog. I was in a fan fog, because these artists are such big stars. It even took me, I had to settle my butterflies to play and to get down to work and actually play with them. A lot of fun.
Well, I think that's great because you are, million people in the world are fans of Toto and yourself and look at her, but you still are fan of some other artists, which I think it's great that there's always someone that you admire, and I think keeping that.
Oh yeah, well, there's always people. It's like Picasso said, a painting's never finished, and I feel that way. Like the band, like we never quite get to as good as we want to be. We're always trying to be the best version of us that we're trying to be. I'm trying to better myself as a songwriter every day. I practice the piano every day, and just try and be the best musician I possibly can. Best version of myself.
And do you usually listen your old stuff, or are critic? Do you do criticism with all stuff that you say, oh, I shouldn't have recorded this that way, or you
that's why I try not to do. I've listened to my stuff hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'm not sick of it. I figure if I have to be able to listen to this multiple times for me to want other people to listen to it. If it doesn't excite me, I can't expect it to excite other people. So yes, I do listen to my own music, and that's why I make it. For a lot of it's for my own enjoyment, personal enjoyment, and also for my colleagues and peers and fans that want to hear some new, fresh music.
Well, what you just said, when I did the interviews to Steve and Joseph, they both said the same, that at this point of their life, they just released their CDs, just doing the music they want, the music they feel, not caring about producers or fans or whatever. So, and you just said something like that. So how does it relate? Do you think music industry today went down, and it's so many things? What do you feel about music?
I like music today. I think there's some good stuff out there. I like Ed Sheeran. I like Train. I like I love Pink, and I like some of the artists. There's some great singers out there, and they're doing great production, great tracks. I feel that the little stuff is a little static these days, and by static I mean processed. It's like a processed food, you know what I mean? When all these tracks go through a producer, and the producer tightens it up, they tune it, they tune the vocals, and they correct the timing of the drums and the guitars and everything. So back in the day, we were hired as musicians because you didn't have to do that with people. But today, everybody kind of goes through this homogenizer, this process. At least most people, not everybody. I'm not talking about everybody. But I find that I like the music. I love Adele. I love hearing great singers sing, I used to be a big fan of Joe Cocker's. I love Bryan Adams. I love Mick Jagger, real raunchy singers. And again, as long as someone sings a song and makes it believable, tells a story, they have my attention.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm a huge fan of Bryan Adams too.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I was thinking that remind me of I saw recently an interview from Rick Beato to Tim Pierce. They were talking about the session musicians, and one thing Tim Pierce was saying is that back on those days you had to record a song in one take, so it was very important just not mistakes, play the right notes, and I think
that's the way sessions are. But we weren't session musicians until like later on. We played in a high school band together, and that's what we were mainly known for, is that we had a band feel. You could hire me, Steve Lukather, David Hungate, and get a rock and roll band, to play your music for you, because we had a much more edgier, muscular approach to pop music than most people did. And I think that's that resulted in people making it desirable to hire us.
Yeah, and keeping with the same thing, I always admire the people that can play with no mistakes. I play myself, and sometimes I play things that I think, wow, that's great, and sometimes this is crap. But
that's right.
But for me, it's so hard to play the whole 5 minutes with no mistakes, no missing notes. And
yeah, it is.
I would like to know, because you're one of the greatest players, and I have the chance to ask you, is there any way to practice that, or you just think it just comes naturally from recording?
You got to you got to drill it. That's why we rehearse. We rehearse and we play the show over and over and over and over again. It's only for 2 weeks, granted, and most of the people are professional enough to where they can learn the song and they learn it in detail. So there's not too much. They just copy the record, But it's still, when you put all that together, you even have the first days of the show when our band goes out, and our band is still tiptoeing through the raindrops, trying to play everything perfectly. But there's some mess ups. People get a loose focus sometimes, or sometimes a technical accident will happen. So it does happen, and TOTO music, it keeps you on your toes. You can't let your mind wander too much, because the music changes so often. So you got to stay pretty much, have a lot of clarity and a lot of focus, and be pretty sober to play our music. Okay.
Drink afterwards.
Yeah, that's right.
And how do you manage the live gear you use for your sounds? I mean, I guess in the productions of the albums, you use many sounders and sounds.
We have a keyboard technician who's been out on the road with TOTO before, so I'm using a lot of the same sounds, same soft synth sounds, and same digital sampled sounds that I've been using on the road for quite a while, with various keyboards that I'm using on the road here. But I just have one keyboard, and it's a controller for all the different sounds. And I'm usually only playing piano and organ. So my sounds are pretty simple and pretty basic, as opposed to the X has a multitude of sounds, and so does Steve Bajoria. They're handling all the synths for the record.
Okay. I wanted to know, do the music, you're listening a lot of music, and what kind of music do you listen? Like old school or modern music?
I like listening to a lot of film soundtracks. I love Indiana Jones by John Williams. I love classic movies. And again, I'll listen to the Beatles channel on Sirius FM. I love that channel. And I love just sweeping through the different music and hearing people like Fleetwood Mac. And I still love some of the old classic music, especially Fleetwood Mac. I really love them, and Zeppelin.
Oh.
You still have me?
Oh yeah. I had a notice like 10 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah. My note, I have to go to another interview right now.
Okay. Well, then it's a great pleasure having the chance to talk to you.
Pleasure's mine.
Wish you all the best and hope to see you soon in Spain.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon. Nice to meet you, and thanks for the wonderful interview.
And take care. Bye.
Bye.